Thank you for being here. Hartelijk dank aan Toolsig and Microsoft for having put this event together. And thank you for having shown up today and listening to us and presentations on stuff of DNN 6. I am Peter Donker, originally from Holland, as was said before, now happily living in Switzerland. Very high up. I will bet I'm probably the one in the room that lives at the highest altitude here. So anyway, and I run a small enterprise called Bring to Mind, which sells a document management solution on .NETNuke, and I've been doing that since 2004. Now I'm going to press this thing. I was going to go forward. Yeah, there we go. So I briefly, the subject is to do with localization. Now, localization, I will explain in a segment what localization is, so that we're all on the same page. What localization is. And I will talk a little bit about .NETNuke's internationalization team. So, localization. When we have a DNN site, now this is the DNN site as it was a while ago, but I just ripped out this slide from a previous presentation, so you have to forgive me here. But we see a pattern that we see on all CMS sites, if you like. You have a menu, you have content floating around it, stuff. Now, we talk a lot about static localization and content localization. And sometimes there are confusions about which is which. First of all, in the room, just a show of hands who has never worked with DNN yet. Everyone's worked with DNN, great. Okay. So, static localization. And static localization means the texts that are baked into the system, that are not user configurable, or at least very difficult to configure. They came with the system. You unwrapped it. I mean, the logout button, it says logout. It's not been edited by any one of us. You are here, that came with the skin, for instance. It's a static text. Then there's dynamic text. So stuff like the page titles that you use, everything that's on the page, more or less. Of course, my own name, actually, but yeah. The stuff that's being put up there, that's all there. Then so that's one dichotomy. It's between what is static and what is dynamic, or static and content. The other is what part belongs to what you got as the core and what belongs to a module. So what we see here is I've outlined all the texts that are managed by the .NETNuke core. Those include all the page titles, all the module titles, all, of course, of the static text that came with the core skin and with the core itself. And there's stuff that you've managed, you've edited as a content manager that's inside of the module. So that's what I've outlined there. So you can see there's a dichotomy. So what goes in the module and what goes in the core. But most importantly, what is static and what is dynamic text. So now I briefly want to outline a couple of things about static localization, resource files, and language packs. Who has never seen unpacked a resource file before? Everyone knows what a resource file is. Okay, cool. So the resix files the resource files are resix files, as you know then, that contain text values in an XML format. A language pack is nothing more than just a bunch of these resource files zipped together with a manifest that tells the system where to put those resource files. Now, it's either a pack for the .NETNuke core, or it's a pack for a specific module or a skin or whatever, anything that is called a package. And it installs like any other extension of DNN. Obviously, you've all installed language packs here, which doesn't really surprise me, given the fact that we're outside the US. You get quite a different response, right, if you present in the .NETNuke conference in the US. Yeah, glazed eyes and Really? Okay. Interestingly enough, I noticed one other thing, right? You upload the core language pack to the system, and it immediately assumes that you want to use that in your portal, which to this day, I don't know if it's really a bug or a feature. You don't need to switch it on anymore. It's just there immediately. Boom. So one of the things I would like you to remember is, or to take away from the presentation as well, is that when we talk about language packs, I always refer to 3 dimensions that it has. There's a specific component or package, whether it's a module or a skin or whatever. There's a specific version of that specific component, and there's a specific locale that you're translating. So a package always has those 3 components to it. So you say, it's an HTML module language pack, version 402, I don't know actually what version they are on right now, and it's DE-CH. Right? That would be a single language pack. It has those 3 dimensions. Then there is okay, so now one side step here to the core versus the full pack. Who has not been confused by the terms core and full language pack? Right, so we're all very confused. Great. Either that or you're just shy to stick up your hand. But here's the thing. In the old days, when you went to the German site, everyone knows Sebastian Leupold, of course. Yeah, exactly, famous name. He's the guy that did the German language pack. And he would make those packs available on his site. And he would label them core or full. Now, who knows what came with the core and who knows what came with the full? Eric? Yeah, he's out. He's not allowed to answer to this. Who knows what came, what was the difference between those 2? Core packs and full packs. Okay, so the difference was that in the full pack you had all the modules that came with the installation. Now, with DNN3, if you installed .NETNuke, all the modules that came with the distribution would be automatically installed. So you would have not just the HTML module, you would have the announcements module, right? Eric has to give him credit. Forums module, you would have the blog module, everything would be installed. A couple of years later, we find out that all those DLLs that stick in the bin folder actually are dragging down a site. So it's not very handy to have everything installed when you're not going to use everything. That's why from DNN4 in the later versions, then DNN5 came along, and DNN5 finally, they said, okay, we're not going to install everything. We're just going to install a couple. The essential one. It used to be HTML and links, and now it's just HTML and actually a couple of providers. So the full pack contained the whole enchilada. All those core modules, they were all translated, and that would fit in there. That's a huge amount of work to do. If anyone has ever tried to translate the forums module, you know that the forums module, I think, is about the same size as the whole DNN core in terms of translation. So those full packs tended to be kind of semi-full packs anyway. But the distinction was the core pack was just the core, and the full pack was everything that came with it. Now, because of the fact that localization, or our predicament here outside of the US is not very well understood in the US, they changed something in the installer which made it all of a sudden impossible to install full language packs in DNN5. That aggravated a number of people around the planet, all of them, of course, outside the US. Said, why did you do this? Because now all of a sudden we can't install everything at once. Well, that's because we changed the dependency and this and that, and a whole technical story. But long story short, we need to find a way forward out of this. This is an important issue which is still simmering, you would like. And it all goes back to the distinction between core and full pack, and sometimes in the community there's still people who cling on to this I want the full pack thing, when actually the future will show that the full pack is something that is going to fade away, as all of the core modules will slowly begin to be taken away from the distribution of DNN. And how does that happen is because in the future DNN, it will unfold, and then the modules that you will use, you will be able to download by just clicking, I would like this module, and it will go to Codeplex, get the module, and install it for you. That's the instant on thing that you referred to earlier. It's a new feature in DNN 6, and it's the way we're all moving. That's the way we're going. Everything is going to install in the background. Now, I want to raise, so that was actually one issue I raised. I have another couple of issues I want to outline that we have currently in localization. So there's language pack production issues that we have. First of all, we need, of course, a good quality and timely language packs for all major languages. Now, I make a distinction between the two because we sometimes get good quality translations, but they come 2 years after the fact, for instance. That's no use to us, or it's limited use. And we get something which is, the day after release, but it's not very great. Of course, we would like to have, for you guys, the German translation done when the product comes out and, solid. And for all major languages. So including Spanish, Italian, Italian is not done. Dutch, we're working on trying to get everything up to, up to speed. French, we're very far with, the French team is actually leading in this whole thing. So anyway, the problem is that here we depend on community resources. So we depend on volunteers. Like a number of you here would say, I'll help out, I'll translate the, forums module would be nice. But I'll make a translation for that. To take it one step further, we don't just need translations for those core modules, we also need translations for third-party modules. Now, of course, that's a problem really of the third-party module vendor, but I am in that position, and I know what a complex field that is, because a customer will approach me and say, I have a client, I made a translation for you, would you like to have it? I'm like, sure. Okay, so I integrate it, I make it available to other customers somewhere. But the thing is, it's a very haphazard, non-structured way. And ideally, I would like to have a smoother way to have translations feed through a central channel in .NETNuke straight into the system, if you like. So there's another thing. The emergence of Professional Edition, and Eric is here to represent the Professional Edition. It raises the question if we should still rely on community resources to translate them, to translate the core. So think about Sebastian Leupold here for a second that you guys all rely on, or is this really something that's on the plate of DNN Corp? As they say, well, we have a professional product and it's available in German. I'm just throwing it out there as an issue, saying this is something.
Taking that a little bit further, would it concern you if we would bring out a professional edition with a full German translation,
right,
and not make that translation available for the community? So if you want that full translation, you have to buy the professional product. Would that concern you? Just a question.
How would you react if DNN Professional Edition, because they pay a translator to do it, says no, only the Professional Edition will have a German translation. For the community one,
go to Sebastian.
Go to Sebastian, exactly.
Why don't you just sell it to everybody?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's an interesting question.
Yeah.
The answer to that probably is if you want to buy it from us, you have to buy it with the license to the paid product. So
which is, So which actually brings me to the last point, is that because the resource files, you can't protect them in any way, right? There's no way you can to put a licensing mechanism or whatever on them is very hard. So they are usually free, because someone who makes a translation is like, I can't protect that, so it is free. And also on the other side, the community has begun to see them as free as well. There's a perception that this should be free. Hey, it's a translation. It's not a big deal, right? It's just a text in another language. So it's also hard to get out of that, and that also influences that discussions. Like, charging for a language pack. I mean, some people have done that in the past, but I've never heard of anyone making a successful business out of it. That's the thing. And yeah. So anyway, another part is the distribution. So installation of correct of the language packs that you need is still somewhat of a wizardry, right? You've got to you have to know, I'm using DNN 6.0, so if I'm going to do it in DECH, I need the DECH 6.0 language pack. Then, I'm using Peter's module. I need to get hold of a DECH language pack for document exchange. Good luck. You need to harvest all of those language packs and start installing them one by one. Or if you're very smart, you throw them onto the install/language folder and you say install.aspx ? Equals resources. Mode equals resources, something like that. Install resources. Anyway, that will work, and it will all install at once. But the thing is, it's a lot of wizardry to get this installed correctly. Now, this to me is something that we need to work on, right? As I'm talking about community, DNN Corp, the people running the technology here. The producers of language packs, people like Sebastian, people like Benoit Sarton of the French community, they're contributing this stuff to us, and as I make it easier for the users to install, they will pressure me to say, yeah, but I want them to see that they got it from me, that it was my work. Everyone has some kind of self-interest in the whole translation process. So I need to be sensitive to how these people react to their stuff being distributed. And then there's the whole thing about updates. So let's say someone discovers there's something wrong with the language pack, or could be some improvements could be made. That language pack will get an update. How does that get distributed to those who've already got it? So those are distribution aspects, and my vision for the whole thing is that I've tried to outline it in this wonderful graph. Basically what happens is we have producers, and this doesn't have a pointer, does it? So we have, in the middle, we have .NETNuke.com website and that would function as a hub for the information of where language packs are, and and what version, and etc. The 3 dimensions that I was talking about. And you have the end user who has a DNN installation that has a particular constellation of those objects, right? He has a core and several modules, providers, whatever, and has a particular desire. So, by the way, I want to do this for DECH. Query DNN.com, where can I get those packs? Click, boom, the packs start flowing into the system and install. That's the kind of the vision where we want to go with this whole thing. So that was static localization. How much am I? 5 more minutes? Okay. Content localization I'm going to do very, very quickly because it's less of a concern for you, immediate concern. So concerns multilingual sites. It's a very, very Swiss thing. And it is extremely hard to implement. And I'll explain that with this graph, which is before what we would have is we'd have a content owner and then content consumers in the site. I mean, content owner are the people who have edit rights to a particular module. Say, okay, I'm going to write this and this and this. And the content consumers are the people reading the website. And now we're going to complicate things by saying, they have various languages that they come from that they would like to read, and we have various translators, and now they're going to make that available in these various languages. Now, the main complication comes from the fact that these translators might not have the same rights as the content owner. And the whole DNN system was based on the permissions of an editor of content. So this really threw things up in the air. And because that was so hard to solve, it has been pushed back a long time. And we've relied on products of, of Eric and others to solve that until now. So basically there are three approaches. Either you build a whole new website next to it, or you have several pages. For each page you have shadow pages in different languages, or you do it at a module level. Each page is its own page, but the module has kind of shadow copies for different languages. Now, as you descend that, right, the technical complexity increases, but the administrative complexity decreases. So if we could achieve it all the way down to the module level, it'd be awesome for admins because they just have one page to look at, one site to look at, one thing to manage. That's awesome. If you have 2 different sites in 2 different languages, which is technically extremely easy because you can do that from right now, the problem is how do you keep referring from one page to the other? There's no linkage anymore, and as an admin, you've got a major nightmare there to work on. So. Just saying that if you're going to go for the full complexity of translators having their own special permissions, that final level is, I have not seen a viable solution for that. And that's why the DNN content localization has chosen to go in the middle level. So we have localization at a page level. So you get shadow copies of each page if you activate content localization. Note that this is an irreversible process. Exactly, we're working on it, but for now it's an irreversible process. Once you hit that button, it's done. Now, last couple of minutes, just what we're doing with an internationalization team. So this was created in 2008 as DNN became DNN Corp, or the corp became, got funded. The core team changed, and one of my hobby horses was there should be a dedicated team looking at issues concerning non-English speakers. Because my impression was, and I think Eric shared it with me, that it was just not on their radar in California or in Vancouver. So that team was founded in 2008. It gathered a number of people. So here I list a couple of countries from where people came. I represent Switzerland in this one. And, the primary goal is giving in-depth feedback to DNN Corp about issues that happen here. Right? That happened for us, that we're struggling with. We're saying this product doesn't work logically, or it doesn't work the way we want it to, and then we can feed that back up and hopefully get it on the roadmap. So we also run a thing called a tool to help in the management and distribution of language packs. If you want to know anything about that, ask me. I'm running that project. Basically, we get all the text of a particular thing into the database, and we can generate language packs out of the database immediately, and that way have them versioned correctly and make sure that the manifest is correct, all that kind of stuff. And so, looking ahead, and this is like where I want to round off, what this team and me personally with this team we're looking for is to improve the production and distribution of language packs. That's one very, very big focus. Secondly, what we're looking at is improving the content localization experience, giving better feedback to users, what the status is of a particular page. And one of the things, the example I often use when I give a presentation in the US is the PostFinance site. It's my bank, so I go there, and my preference is English because they got stuff in English. They've got 4 languages: German, French, Italian, English. Oh, English. And every now and then, of course, stuff would be in German for me. They're like, yeah, sorry, didn't have the means to translate that, or it's recent information, etc. It hasn't been translated yet. And it really shows how it works for a large company to work with a site that's in 4 languages, and I'm of course in the 4th language, not the 1st or the 2nd. And I understand that. I forgive them for the fact that it's shown in German. It's fine. It's already great that a bunch of other stuff was in English. But so in my opinion, that is how it should work. And currently, you know, we are currently at that level where it will work that way. So that's really great. But of course, we can make improvements here and there, and that's what we're going to do. And the ability to roll back content localization, which Eric will talk about later. So yeah, rounding off. Thank you for listening to me. Again, thank you for showing up. And if you have any questions about localization, about internationalization, you know, how the product works in this context, don't hesitate to contact me. And of course, if you have questions about document management, yeah.